Welcome to educator.com. This lesson is about test-taking strategies, and we are in part 3. This strategy is about eliminating the answer. This is one of the most important strategies that you need to think about. In multiple choice questions, you should always first eliminate answers that you are positive do not make sense. This means that later, if you're not sure about a question or an answer and you come back, you can focus your attention on the answers that are possibilities, because usually multiple choice questions will have 4 to 5 answers. If you are able to take out one answer, your possibility or chances of getting the answer correct have risen quite a bit. So you should always eliminate the answers that you know are wrong first. Let's try this example. A plant you bought 2 years ago is 3 feet 4 inches tall. It was 1 foot 9 inches tall when you bought it. About how many inches has the plant grown since you bought it? Well, first off, my first answer is 2 inches. If I think about 3 feet from beginning from 1 foot 9 inches, I know that is grown at least close to 2 feet. So 2 inches is definitely not going to make sense to me. So now I've taken out 2 inches as an answer, and instead of having a 25% guess chance rate, I've now increased to a 33% chance. So now that we've taken out the one that is definitely wrong, let's try to figure out the problem. So 3 feet 4 inches minus 1 foot 9 inches. Okay, so to take 9 inches from 4 inches, we need to borrow. But think about, and remember that we're using measurements. And when you take a feet or you borrow a foot, you're borrowing 12 inches, not 10. So this becomes 2 feet plus the 12 inches because there's 12 inches in a foot. So 4 plus 12 is 16. 16 minus 9 is 7, and 2 minus 1 is 1. So it's grown 1 foot and 7 inches. But my answer does not say anything about feet. So let's change this 1 foot. It's 12 inches plus 7 inches, and that's 19 inches. So my correct answer is B. So although I was only able to cross out 2 inches right away, it still helped my chances. Let's try another example. The height of a door is 87 inches. A person standing in the doorway is 52 inches tall. Find the approximate distance in feet between the person's head and the top of the door. So they're telling us approximate. So that means I'm going to take 87 and make it about 90. And I'm going to take 52 and make it about 50. And that leaves me with about 40 inches. And 40 inches we can divide by 12. 12 will go into 40 about 3 times, giving us 36. If it were 4 feet, it would be about 48. So 36 and 48 are both very close. So we know that it's either going to be 3 or 4 feet. So I can take out A and B. And now I can just look at 3 and 4. So I'm going to take 87 minus 52. 7 minus 2 is 5. 8 minus 5 is, I didn't borrow, so 8 minus 5 is 3. And 35 divided by 12, well, that gives me a better estimation. 35 divided by 12 is very close to 36 inches, to 35 inches. So my closest would be 3. So my answer is C, 3 feet. Just by doing a rough estimation in the beginning, I was able to get rid of 2 answers right away. And then by doing some more careful calculations, I was able to realize that C, 3 feet, was the correct answer. A cell measures 10 to the negative 6 millimeters in length. Which number represents this length as a decimal? Well, we know it's a cell, so it's going to be something very tiny, and it's going to be to the negative 6th power. And that means how many times I'm moving the decimal, not multiplying by the front. So I can take out D right away because that's a huge number. That's 1 million. I can take out C because it's not 6 times 10. And I can also take out negative 60 because a negative exponent does not represent a negative value. And now, without doing any calculation, I found my answer, B. Another test-taking strategy is using a variable. You can use a variable to set up equations. Remember that the variable represents the unknown. So look at the question and carefully think about what it's asking for. That's going to represent the variable. Sometimes the multiple choice questions will give you answers that are not what the question is looking for. So those answers you know that you can immediately eliminate. So first, always ask yourself, what is the question asking for? And think of that as your variable. You have a copy of your company logo that is 4 centimeters long and 2 centimeters wide. You need an enlarged copy of the logo that is 6 centimeters long. How wide must the enlarged copy be? So we're looking for how wide. So right away tell yourself W is going to be the width of the enlarged copy. So here what we would do is create a proportion. 4, and that's going to be our length, over 2, and that's going to be our width. And to create the equal proportion, I would say 6. Remember, you keep length and length on the top and width on the bottom. And W would be your answer here. So now you can cross multiply 4W equals 12. 2 times 6 is 12. Divide by 4, and your W equals 3. So your width is going to be 3. So the important thing here was, before being able to find the answer, I had to understand what the problem was asking for and to set it equal to a variable. Maybe the answer won't have a variable in it, but by using a variable, you can help yourself to find the correct answer. A family is on a 500-mile road trip. They have already driven 220 miles in 4 hours. If they continue driving at this rate, about how long will it take them to drive the entire 500 miles? So let's see, we're looking at about how long. So that means I'm looking for a certain amount of time. And if I look to the answers, yes, they're all about time. So let's set up our proportion. H, I'm going to say equals hours for trip. So I've created my variable. So it takes the family 220 miles in 4 hours. So over here, I know the bottom is time, and on top we have distance. So now when I set up my proportion, I already have a variable h for hours of trip. The full trip distance is 500, and that's going to be h hours. So now I can cross multiply 220h equals 5 times 4 is 20, and tack on 2 more zeros, 2,000. I'm going to divide both sides by 220, and that'll cancel, and I'm going to take out that 0, and h equals, and now you could also use substitution. So I'm going to start in the middle, 22 times 6, 12, 13. 132, that is not going to get me to 200, so let's try a higher value. 22 times 7, 14, 14, 15. And that's going to get me to the closest to 200, and so we're going to say D, about 7 hours. So this was a combination of several test-taking strategies. First, we thought about our variable, what we were looking for. Then we created our proportion, and then we went and looked at the answers for substitution. Now 7 hours would not exactly meet the trip, but it would be the longest amount of time for the entire miles. A map is 17.5 inches wide and 22 inches long. The map is enlarged so that it is 34 inches long. Which proportion can you use to find the new width? So W is our variable, and W is going to be our width. So now let's set up our proportions. I'm going to put it as width over length. And that's going to be 17.5 for the old proportions and 22 equals length, it goes on the bottom, 34. So it's good that everything is very clearly labeled, and I know that width goes on the top. So there it was very important for me to set up my variable W. And in the problem it used x, But that's okay. See, this x can sometimes be confusing because you're not sure whether the x represents the length or the width. So I like to use the first letter of what it is that you're looking for. So now I see that it's 17.5 over 22. Well, just by looking at the front, I can already eliminate this answer, and this answer, because this is the only one that is 17.5 over 22. But if we look at the next part, we see that it's w over 34. Do I have a w over 34 here? No, I don't. So that's why it's important to also look at the second half. So instead of canceling these out, let's see which one can work. So in this case, we have width on top, 17.5, length on the bottom. So this answer should be, oh, we could also cross multiply. Or we could have length and length. Okay, so 17.5 is the width over the width here, and then that we're looking for. And then we have the length, 22, that we know, over the length that we're looking for. So 17.5 over x equals 22 over 34. So it would match this one. So what we've learned here is that although you may set up your proportion differently as what the problem set up, you need to make sure to check the second part. Don't jump right into the conclusion that it's A, because then I crossed out B, C, and D and I did not find my correct answer. So you need to make sure that both parts will match on either side of the equation. And by setting up my own equation and then coming here and finding that one didn't match, I was able to work backwards and use the answers that were given to me to set up a new proportion. Thank you for watching educator.com.